Okay, alright, hi, good morning everyone. It's Oddmire Ash here, doing my Q&A video. So, I got a couple questions from you guys that I'm gonna answer today. I'm gonna try and keep it, really informal, so this is, my first time answering them. Uh, first question is, when did you first start drawing, and when do you usually draw? So, I don't know, I've drawn as long as I can remember. My parents tell me stories about how when I was a kid, I used to lock myself in my room for hours at a time and just draw. You know, even my attention span for drawing was so good that I could just do it forever. I took a lot of classes in high school, pretty much every art class that I could, and I didn't go to college, so. After I left high school, I stopped drawing for a while when I was working. I don't know, I was kind of at jobs that were kind of soul crushing, so I didn't feel like drawing very much. And, looking back too, I kick myself because I really should have kept it up, but I didn't. And so, oh gosh, probably around a year and a half ago at this point, I was like, you know what? I need to do it. I need to keep drawing. This is your passion. You haven't consistently been doing it for a while, so I really told myself, yes, you are going to draw every single day. Even if it's just a doodle, at least that's something. So, ever since then, I have kept to that. So I draw every day. Sometimes, when I'm at my day job, I'll just doodle a little bit. Or if I have to squeeze it in on my lunch break, I'll do that. But usually it's after my work, or I do a lot of my drawing on the weekends, just because I don't work on the weekends. So yeah, that's kind of what I do. And then also part of that question is what influences you to draw, and do you draw for enjoyment or as work? I do both. So I draw things that I like, but I also draw for work too because I take the commissions. I do usually like doing the commissions. If there was something that I was really uncomfortable with doing, I wouldn't do it, but for the most part, I'm fine drawing new things. So yeah, as far as influences then, it's gonna sound stupid, but I mean everything. Because you go outside and you see a really pretty landscape. You're like, oh hey, this makes me want to make something really cool. You watch a TV show and you see a really cool character. You're like, oh man, I really want to draw them. Or oh, this character would be really cool. But what if they were this too? Something like that. It makes you want to keep creating things, and so that's honestly everything is an influence, and especially too. Since I've been more active on Twitter lately, seeing a lot of other artists' work and stuff is really inspiring too, because you see people kind of do waves. The one artist will draw a character, and then their friend will see it and be like, oh man, I want to draw that character too. And then they'll draw it, and then some other artists will see it, and then so you'll get waves of oh man, everyone's drawing this character, but it does make you want to draw them too. It happens all the time. So that's kind of an influence too. Yeah. So next question is, what is your sexual orientation? So I'm bisexual. If you want to be really nitpicky about it, I'm pansexual, because I honestly don't really care as long as you're a really cool person and I think you're hot. And I think that people's personalities goes a long way in that. You could be fairly average looking, and then if you have a super awesome personality, you're really funny and stuff, you're instantly hotter in my mind. So I don't know, it doesn't really matter to me as long as the person's a good person, and I like their personality, and we're compatible in that way. So okay. What made you start drawing not safe for work material? Well, I drew a little bit of it back when I was a teenager. I think most people kind of do when they do not safe for work art. So I remember too, I have a very embarrassing story of there was one time I drew I think it was a mermaid or a lamia or something. It was some monster girl, of course. And it was back in middle school, I want to say, and I was seeing my dad, and I was like, hey, I really want to show you this drawing that I did. It's really cool, but I mean, it's kind of inappropriate, but I mean, lots of artists do that, so so it's just this this monster girl that was topless, which of course fairly tame, but for me, and of course I was like, hey Dad, look at what I did. So he's like, oh Ash, her tits are out. I was like, well, yeah, should I not have shown you this? So I don't know I think that I was just like, I've been interested in it. I was like, well, I see other artists doing it, it's something that looks fun to draw. Like, if you can draw not safe for work stuff, you can draw a lot of things, because getting anatomy right is really hard. So if you can do that, I think you're pretty good there. So, it's partly that too, of like, well, I need to learn anatomy, and if I'm gonna learn anatomy, well, why don't I make it kind of sexy? Like, why not? I think it's fun. I remember, when you're a teenager, you look at everything on the internet, so it's, I like the idea of creating things like that, and that's my thoughts on that. That's I don't know, I guess so. I started when I was like 13 or something. But like I said earlier, is that I had a bit of a lull in my drawing like after high school. So once I started drawing again around that year and a half ago, I had told myself, hey, I really want to do this. I think it would be really cool to like get good at this, because I really like looking at artwork like that. So that's when I really kind of went hard into it, of like, yes, I'm going to do not safe for work stuff, or mostly not safe for work stuff. So all right, next question is, where did you get the idea for Mel, and why did you stick with her for so long? So for any of you who don't know, Mel is my OC. She's a slime girl. So basically, when I got kind of in the habit of drawing every day again, I was just kind of whipping out whatever, and of course monster girls are my favorite, especially slime girls. So I was like, all right, I'll draw a couple. And so I drew her, but it wasn't planned to be like, okay, this is gonna be my character, she's gonna be this, this is her personality, like nothing like that. I was just me just kind of doodling out. But I really liked the color scheme that I picked, and I really liked the way that she looked, and I was like, you know what, I should draw her again. And so I did, and then I kind of got a little bit attached to her. I was like, oh hey, I really like her. I'm gonna name her, and I'm gonna make her an original character, because as far as I can remember, I never made one before. And I was like, it'd be cool to have some person, or like an OC that I could draw over and over again when I'm practicing different poses or expressions or this or that, and be like, okay, like, well, instead of just being a random thing, it can be this specific, person. So I guess I've stuck with her so long now, is just because I really like the way that she looks still. I've made, a couple of OCs since then that she can interact with and other people can interact with, but, I don't know, I like the way that she looks, and I like the little personality that I've made for her, and I think that it's fun to draw her interacting with others. So, okay, next is my thoughts on censorship in art. So, South Park kind of said it best. I mean, I know they were referring to comedy, but they had said that either it's all okay or none of it is okay, and I think the same rule applies for artwork, because that's the thing, is once you start limiting that sort of thing, it gets difficult, because you can have two images side by side that are like really similar, and one is okay and one isn't, and then when you say, okay, well, what's the exact difference, like, it would be really hard to measure, like, oh, well, this one, like, if it was two gore pictures, for example, and one's the blood was a little bit brighter than the other, they could say, oh, well, it looks a little bit too intense on this one or not on this one. It's like, okay, well, how do you gauge that? It would be really hard, and I think it'd be really easy to abuse, so I just don't think it's a good idea. The only time that I could really see it being, difficult or kind of a gray area is, like, with drawn, like, lowly stuff, which I will say, like, I don't mind it, like, it's fine, as long as it doesn't get, like, too realistic, which I think that's, with the laws in America, that's kind of what it is like, as long as it's not, like, photorealistic, it's okay. So, it's just, it's hard to say, but I do think that, if we were to err on caution, it would be, like, no limits on it, because it would just be too hard to enforce things like that. Okay, and then the next question is, what are your thoughts on relationships and kink? So, for any of you that don't know, I am polyamorous, which means that I can be in multiple relationships at once. I'm not polygamous, so I'm not married. I don't plan on getting married. But there are different kinds of polyamorous relationships. Like, some people do hierarchies where it's like, oh, this is, my first girlfriend or, boyfriend, whatever. Or a lot of times that'll be like the wife or the husband. And then like a step down, which is, oh, this is my secondary boyfriend or girlfriend. And I don't really like the sound of that, because I don't like kind of making people kind of like second class in a relationship. I think that's kind of, I don't know, it's just not for me. I know it can work for some people as long as they're all consenting to it and are fine with it, but I'm not about that. And I know too that like open relationships are not for everyone. I've had people talk to me about it and they're like, oh, I don't get it, or oh, you must not be very committed. And it's like, well, no, because I was in a relationship with a guy for about 5 years, and I think about 6 months into our relationship, we opened up and went poly, and I've been poly ever since, and that was, oh gosh, years ago. That was like when I was a teenager. So, for most of my dating life, I've been poly, and, I've dated several people in between then, and the partner that I have now, I've been with for, like, 3 or 3.5 years, something like that. So, like, you can be totally committed, and be in long-term relationships, but, so, I don't know, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about relationships like that. And then, I guess, as far as kink goes, I don't know specifically, but, like, what to talk about there, but, I think that it's, kink, it's make sure that you're, everyone's consenting and things, and I think it's nice to try new things, but not to go, so far out of your comfort zone right away, because otherwise you'll probably just be turned off to the whole idea. And I think, too, what's nice with kink is to be able to talk to other people about it, like other people that are into it, and then just in general, too, with kinks and relationships, well, kinks is a little bit different, but at least with my thoughts on things is, like, I think it's better to be open and honest about everything if you can. Like, if you're in a place where you can, like, I get that there's some places that it's not exactly safe to be open about shit, but at least where I live and with my family, like, they've been really cool about everything. I don't let my kinks lead my lifestyle. Like, I know people that are like, oh yes, I'm a slave and this is how I live my life all the time. That's not me. Mine is like, it's not like a lifestyle thing. The polyamory is because, I'm not gonna hide a girlfriend or a boyfriend from someone. That's, I don't do that. I always tell my parents and they're like, oh, okay, I'd love to meet her or him. So I think it's nice, though, is when you're upfront about things like that, is that there's no misconception. Like, I've been open to work, too. It was like, I'll be talking to a coworker, and then they'll say, oh, what'd you do over the weekend? I'll be like, oh, yeah, me and my boyfriend hung out, and then I hung out with my girlfriend the next day, and, they'll give some puzzled looks, but then when I explain it, they're like, oh, okay, that's weird, but okay. But I think, the more people that know about it, the more accepted it'll be, because, instead of just, oh, some faceless figure of, like, oh, these people that do this, it's like, oh, well, it's my coworker, like, yeah, she's like that, I know people like that, so, I can make a whole, like, video on being open and honest with people, but that would be too long for this. Alright, so the last question then is, what are your plans for the future? Well, it's hard to say. So I currently right now am working a full-time day job, and then I do, the part-time artwork where I do commissions and things. I think in the future, like, definitely my goal is to be doing art full-time, but just right now, like, financially that would be disaster. I'd lose my house. Like, I couldn't afford it. So, even if it's a slow progression of, like, okay, I take more commissions and everything, and then maybe I go down to part-time on a job, or, and even if I kept that would be okay, and then, if I can transition to just art, that would be cool, too. I don't have any specific plans of, like, oh, I need to do this, and I need to do this by this date, or anything like that. Like, I don't you know, it's just my goal is to like keep working at it, keep, you know, getting up a client base so that I have people that are buying commissions and everything. I would like to at some point, I don't know how far in the future, but at some point do like a comic. It doesn't have to be anything really big. It could even just be like a little one-shot thing, but you know, like at least 10 pages or so. That would, I feel really good about that. I had thought too, one thing that would be really cool would be to print an art book. So like once I have enough good prints set up, I could combine them all into an art book and sell those. I mean, along the same vein as that too, going to a convention and having a table would be really cool, but I don't know, you know, if I can do that at this point. It just depends. I do want to look into like making like stickers and prints and maybe pins or things like that. You know, I have some stuff on like Redbubble and Society6, but it would be cool to get something a little bit more solid set up where it was like maybe me selling it or something. But that would be a plan for the future. I just don't know exactly when that would be. So yeah, I don't know. That's the plans that I have right now, is just kind of keep doing what I'm doing and try and like make it the full-time gig. So yeah. Alright, if you guys have any other questions for me or anything, I'll probably do another Q&A video like, I don't know, in a while. You know, let some things chill for a while. I plan to do probably some more like the Oddmire talks. Maybe I can get Caddy to come in and bullshit with me some more. But yeah, if you guys like have any comments or questions further on this or anything, like, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, yeah, have a good rest of your day. See ya.